This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 160, and on today's episode, Tony Khan wants to add some more of what? We're going to discuss that. Of course, a new working partnership with AEW and another wrestling organization that I'm going to have to start watching now. Of course, we'll be bringing you all the biggest topics and trends, as well as those awesome wrestling news and notes. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski, and doing it with me, as always, he's the one, he's the only, he is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Man, what an exciting week of wrestling we got a chance to watch this week. It was so cool, man. AEW, NXT, War Games is upon us. It was awesome. Unfortunately, some sad news in the world of wrestling. A legend has passed, but we got an opportunity now to break it all down. What hit you this week, cuz?
Yeah, so this was a fantastic week of wrestling, like you said. I want to start with SmackDown because, of course, we always start with SmackDown. And this week, I think what you're starting to kind of see, what you're starting to glean here is Jey Uso just isn't up to the task that Roman Reigns has expectations for of him. And it seems like Jey Uso is continuing to fail and let Roman Reigns down. And I'm not sure that he is this staunch heel character that we originally thought he was. I want to know if you're starting to feel any sympathy for Jey Uso, who continued to let Roman Reigns down, and Roman Reigns keeps cutting into him with some of the most vicious promos and basically giving him chance after chance, but only to be let down afterwards. Because at this point, I'm starting to feel sorry for Jey Uso. I don't feel bad for Roman Reigns, but I do feel bad for Jey Uso in all of this. And I want to know if you're on the same page as me.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting angle in that you have this guy on the rise, and yet he's trying to accomplish some things, but he just can't do it. So I'm fascinated to see how it plays out altogether. But yeah, it is something where Jey Uso's trying his best, but he keeps letting the man down. Does a man keep being patient with him, or does he say no more and destroy him on his way to glory and a great 2021? I can't wait to see how it plays out. I think it's interesting. A little bit of intrigue in what's going on over there at SmackDown.
Yeah, I think it's the most fascinating story on Friday nights right now. And it's like you said, does Roman Reigns just have enough? And does he say enough is enough? And then just does he annihilate his cousin? It's really weird because at this point, I thought we would have more people seated at this Samoan table with him. And it just seems like it's just Jey and Roman. And then you've got Paul Heyman kind of orchestrating things in the background. Yet Jimmy hasn't been brought into the fold. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out moving forward. Now on Monday Night Raw, AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre, they are set for tables, ladders, and chairs. Is this the best direction for both men right now? Now, I would make the argument that this is a matchup that we all want to see. And AJ Styles wrestling a paper bag is going to be a fantastic match. And Drew McIntyre holds his own in every match that he's in. So this is going to be fantastic. We're going to get something awesome from it. But is it the right match for right now? And I don't think it is. I think you could have set up a collision course for both of these guys to meet somewhere down the line. Instead, to me, it feels like it's a very rushed storyline. It feels like, hey, we need two big names. We got to draw some names. We got to pop a number. We've got to do this. We have to do that. Let's put these two guys together and let's watch something happen. This is going to now get expedited and pushed forward for tables, ladders, and chairs. And I just feel like it is just a little bit too quick. I wanted a little bit of a slower build.
No, I'm on board with it. I think it's going to be great. I think it's the right opportunity for AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre to clash. I think it's a perfect time. The match is going to be good, and I think that there's going to be a strong opportunity for this match to kind of elevate both people, despite whoever may go over. I think it's great. I think that AJ Styles is at the position now where he's believable at the top, and he's a legend. So I think potentially the best guy to go over is Drew McIntyre, and I can't wait to see the matches. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I wish we would have just maybe paused a little bit and we could have had a little bit more added to this, a few more layers, a little bit more color to this story. Now, a story that looks like it has a ton of color and a ton of layers, and it seems like WWE is doing a little bit of a switcheroo here. So I'm talking about Randy Orton and I'm talking about The Fiend. And this week, it seems as though Randy Orton maybe one-upped The Fiend just a little bit. So Randy Orton is now going to be portrayed as this master heel, like the baddest of the bad. And it's all to kind of turn Alexa Bliss and The Fiend babyface, which is weird because obviously The Fiend is a heel. Do you like this direction? I think this is a master stroke by WWE. This is one of those things where I think they kind of hit the nail on the head here, because you've got a guy who is the ultimate baddie in Bray Wyatt, and he is a deranged character, and it's fantastic and interesting. And then you've got Randy Orton, who is the legend killer himself. He has been a consummate bad guy. He loves being a bad guy. He was a face for a while, and he went to WWE and said, "No, I don't feel like having abs. Make me a bad guy." That's how much of a bad guy he wants to be. He doesn't even want to do the abs that he has to do to walk around in his little short shorts. I think this is great because you've got basically, I don't want to say it's a double turn because Randy Orton is obviously a heel, but I think this elevates Randy Orton's heel status, and at the same time, you're giving Bray Wyatt a fresh new look. And I love this direction that they're going with. And on top of it, you've got a immense plush backstory to pull from.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be great all the way around. I think that this story has the potential to even surpass what's going on with Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles. So absolutely, 100% on board.
Now, I want to get into Impact. We're going to have a ton of news on Impact as we get later into this episode. But I want to know what you really liked from this week's Impact with Doc's Impact review.
Absolutely. I think we got to talk more about what's going on with Triple XL. I think it's a tag team of made up of two heavyweights. They had an opportunity to get showcased against the Motor City Machine Guns, and they played it off well. An action-packed match, and I think people are starting to recognize that, whoa, Triple XL can be a force in Impact. And I think that the Motor City Machine Guns got the victory, but I think that the match itself was really solid and a performance that I think everyone can be proud of. I thought Impact was good. I think that what's been set up now for the future is intriguing and is potentially something to pay attention to. I really liked the X Division Championship match between Crazy Steve and Rohit Raju. I thought it was really interesting with Raju defeating Steve. You know, Raju rebounded from last week's embarrassment with a win under less than, stellar means, but it's good. A little bit of cheating here and there is never a bad thing. Willie Mack took on Chris Bay, and Mack got the victory. And I just think that when you look at the elevation of certain characters like Rich Swann, Chris Bay, Willie Mack, Moose, I think that you're starting to get the opportunities with the mid-card guys to get some attention, and they're picking up the slack where it's needed. And I think that, putting Willie Mack and Chris Bay in this opportunity to headline the show was really good, really solid. Women, was okay. You had a situation in which women were given an opportunity. Jordan Grace and Jazz took on Killer Kelly and Renee Michelle, with Grace and Jazz getting the W. I think that Jordan Grace is getting the nice push, and I think that when you start to look at the women that have started to evolve, you're starting to get that elevation, and Jordan Grace has been one of them. So it was a good show, B+ all the way around, and stay tuned for Jock's Pro Wrestling News and Notes because there's going to be a major announcement. Don Callis did some business in the last 5 days, and it was really cool to see. So Impact was good, and now that I've laid the table for you guys over the past 2 months, there's a reason, and now they've built a relationship with a major company, and now Tuesday's probably going to spike a rating, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into that, let's talk NXT just to kind of stay with along the WWE line here. War Games is set for this Sunday. And I want to know which match has you most interested. Now, War Games is a fantastic old WCW pay-per-view. You've got two rings side by side, and they're basically surrounded by a steel cage. And you usually have 8 to 10 wrestlers just going at it. Tables, ladders, chairs, all of it's included in here. It is usually a crazy, chaotic match. And this year, we have the women participating in it as well as the men. And for the men, you've got the Undisputed Era taking on For the Brand, led by Pat McAfee. which has been great. They've come onto the scene and they've been outstanding. For the ladies, you've got this, I don't want to say it's a hodgepodge, but you've got Toni Storm, you've got Raquel Gonzalez, you've got, I'm forgetting two other ones here, but you have them going up against Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai, Shotzi Blackheart, and Ember Moon. So it looks like they're going to be two really fantastic matches. I want to know which one has you most bought in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give Team Candice the credit that they deserve. It's Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, and Toni Storm with Indy Hartwell. So it's good. I like both War Game matches, but I'm kind of curious how vicious the strap match is going to be between Cameron Grimes and Dexter Loomis. I think that could be really crazy to watch and something that you should all pay attention to outside of the War Games match. Timothy Thatcher versus Tommaso Ciampa is intriguing, has the chance to do some things, but all in all, War Games, you're going to want to check it out this weekend. I think the matches are going to be great, and everyone wants to see what does For the Brand accomplish in their in-ring work.
Yeah, so I want to go back to For the Brand real quick. So they come down and they cut this promo, and Pat McAfee does a fantastic job. He even flubs the line, and he just keeps rolling, and it was great. He was a true pro. This guy was outstanding. Now, Pete Dunne, who is just the orange character in the back with the man bun who looks completely shredded, hasn't said a word in weeks. Pete Dunne grabs the microphone from McAfee and basically says that they're going to destroy Undisputed Era. And for me, I kind of felt like that was the moment that whole promo should have stopped, because this is a guy who doesn't speak, hasn't spoken in a while, finally said something of note, and it should have just stopped right there to let it all just kind of sink in and resonate just a little bit. Instead, McAfee continues for probably another 2 minutes with some of his rambling, and I just kind of felt like it took away from what Pete Dunne added to the promo. I'm wondering if you're on the same page as me.
Absolutely. I was surprised. I thought that it could deliver much better. I'm surprised why they gave it that much attention. So when you look at it, you say promos are a huge opportunity to push a storyline, and when you flub it, it's not as good. And I think you caught on it just like I did, that it wasn't as ideal as it could be. But look, For the Brand, I think it's unique. Look, do you think they're worthy of the top billing going up against Undisputed Era? Do you think that WWE is taking the right tack with how they've used Pat McAfee, an outsider, but somebody with a huge name, to formulate this faction?
I think Pat McAfee is the most entertaining guy in wrestling right now. Whether he's good in the ring or not, I find anytime he comes on the screen, I can't take my eyes off of him. I find what he brings to be fantastic. Now, look, his in-ring work does have to step up a little bit. I think he's good in the ring. I think he needs to be a little bit better, especially if you're going to get top billing and you're going to be this guy that they want to kind of build around. But I think what he brings as far as a promo, as far as a look, as far as just a natural confidence and this just natural heel ability, I think he's great. And I think he deserves what he's getting. On top of that, think about it this way. Pete Dunne was already a pretty big star. A lot of guys knew who Pete Dunne was. You kind of knew about Orny Loken and you knew about their tag team, Danny Burch, and you knew that they were there, but they never got any TV time. They never really got to do a whole lot of anything. You put them with Pat McAfee, all of a sudden, you now have two more stars, and you've helped elevate a guy like Pete Dunne. So I think that tells you kind of what you need to know about where Pat McAfee is. I mean, Undisputed Era was Undisputed Era. Like they were top billing. They deserve top billing. They have been fantastic. But now you take a guy like Pat McAfee, slot him in with three other guys, and he just elevated them up. At least in Pete Dunne's case, another notch or two. In Danny Burch and Orny Loken, at least 5 or 6 notches above. And the thing is, it wasn't supposed to be Pete Dunne. There was going to be another guy who was utilized very, very little, and it was to get him some television time, and it was to help elevate him. He was supposed to be the silent assassin. He was supposed to be the quiet guy who never really spoke, but did a lot of the dirty work. And he ended up getting hurt, ended up getting injured. They needed to pivot really quick, and they went with Pete Dunne. So I think he deserves top billing because of what he brings to the stable and what he brings to this team. So no, I think he's fully deserving of it all.
Yeah.
Let's transition into AEW, because what we got on Wednesday night was absolutely fantastic. I don't know if there's any other way to put it. I geeked out the moment that Sting showed up. And Sting showed up. Sting has a multi-year deal with AEW. The man is 61 years old. I freaked the F out, bro. I was jumping up and down on my couch. I was clapping. I was smiling from ear to ear. I was so excited to see the Crow Sting, and it was awesome. From his entrance to everything. The lights went dim. They had the snow falling because the whole theme is winter is coming. And next thing you know, Sting shows up. And he looks good. He looks old, but he looks good. It was awesome. Didn't speak, didn't say anything. He's supposed to speak next week on Dynamite. I'm interested to see what he's going to have to say. Came out during or at the very, very end of the FTW Cody Rhodes Nightmare Family match. And when I tell you I was pumped, I don't have the words to describe how excited I was. 1997 Starrcade will always hold a special place in my heart. It was a horrible match between Hulk Hogan and Sting, but it will always hold a very special place in my heart just because of the memories that it conjures. And I basically lived all of it all over again. It was great. How hard did you pop when you seen Sting? You sent me a tweet and you sent me a text message when it was going on because I had to watch it all on delay because I was at work. I couldn't wait to get home to see this.
Yeah, it was awesome, bro. It was like, what? It was because it was totally out of the blue. I don't know if I've been out of the loop. I don't know if there were rumors, but I was like, whoa, what's going on? It was unbelievable. It was great because of the music. It felt like Sting. And so for that moment with fans, it was cool. It was surprising. And like I said, the best part of it was I haven't been as connected to the dirt sheets and the rumors. I've just been watching the shows as is. And boy, was it a shock to see Sting show up there and then to have the nostalgia of Tony Schiavone going, it's Sting! And just him showing up was cool. Then afterwards, you're like, okay, it was announced it was a multi-year contract. He's going to be a full-time AEW employee. My next thought was, do I really want to see Sting in the ring? And who?
Same thing.
You just got to do one more match. You let him have 2 years and he's a manager or a mouthpiece or maybe like some sort of pseudo general manager or like the overseer or beacon of integrity or whatever he's doing at AEW. I can't imagine him wrestling more than 5 times in the next 2 or 3 years. I assume when you say multi-year, it's got to be 2 years. The man's 61 years old. I don't want to see Sting like you saw underneath the announcement on AEW. You saw all the people making the old jokes and referencing, well, how can people be against Goldberg and things like that, but then fully support Sting? I think it's just nostalgia. It was worth the pop, worth the investment for the knowledge that he's going to bring. And he's got the deep relationship with Cody Rhodes. So it's perfect. A great marriage with TNT and that whole dynamic. It's great because it's, again, another WWE guy coming in. And I think what Cody Rhodes is doing is filling up that room and filling up AEW with so much knowledge and history and experience. And plus, are you looking at the social media numbers? They're through the roof with YouTube and AEW. Everyone posted it. It was sick. I've watched it 6 times since it's come out. But in terms of in-ring stuff, it's got to be de-emphasized. I don't want to see, Sting getting hurt like he did against Seth Rollins.
Yes. And that's kind of where my concern is too, because I was like, man, he is 61. I even thought he was a little bit younger than that. I was like, what are you going to get out of a 55-year-old guy? Then I found out he was 61. And I was like, what are you going to get out of a 61-year-old? Because we weren't looking to get a whole lot out of a 55-year-old. So I'm not really sure what you get out of Sting in the ring. And like you said, I don't necessarily want to see him in the ring. I don't want him to tarnish his legacy because I remember his epic moveset, right? And it wasn't even an epic moveset. It was a reverse DDT, which was the Scorpion Death Drop. It was the Stinger Splash, which was basically him whipping you into the corner and him coming in and hitting you with a flying crossbody. And then it was a sharpshooter that he called the Scorpion Deathlock. That was his moveset. That was it. And I loved it. And I geeked hard every time he did any one of those moves. I don't need to see Sting fail at doing those because the way I remember him is how I always want to remember him. But he can come in and, like you said, he can be either a manager, he can be a voice in the room, he can be a guy who cuts a promo because the guy has great promo skills. He can be a mentor for Darby Allin because there seems like there's a direction that they're going with Darby Allin and him. And I think it works fantastic. I just don't need him to get hurt in the ring. And besides, this is a guy who has got beat up by Seth Rollins, like you mentioned. He's got spinal stenosis in his neck. This is a guy who has basically put his body through the ringer. And now at 61, you want to make a comeback? I don't necessarily need to see that. And I don't think I want to see that. I do want to have those good memories of seeing him in the ring and pulling from those nostalgic feels. But I don't need to see him get hurt. I don't need to see him ruin his legacy. But all in all, I thought it was fantastic. I thought Winter Was Coming was great. Led us to our main event. They talked about doing an overrun for this. So this is how good the partnership and this is how good TNT feels with AEW. They talked about giving this match, the main event, Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega. They talked about giving it 60 minutes. And then they talked about, hey, if it goes the full time, we are going to do an overrun. And an overrun is what WWE used to get with USA, where they would end up going for an extra 5 minutes after the top of the hour. So they had this set up with TNT where they knew going in, if this match goes the full 60 minutes, I think they started it at like 9:20 and they had it basically blocked out till like 10:20. And if it ran that full time, they were going to air it on TNT. They weren't going to cut it. They weren't going to pull away from it. It wasn't going to be one of those things. Tune in next week to see who wins. No, it wasn't going to be any of that. You were going to see it all in its entirety. Now, it didn't end up going that long, but they had it set up with TNT, and TNT respects what AEW does so much, and they have such a good working relationship that they gave him the overrun time, which I think is a huge deal for this company and for the television that this company is doing right now. And I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with AEW. AEW is going to put out more dynamites similar to what we got on Wednesday night. They're going to be more pay-per-view quality shows. And that's because Tony Khan had a press conference. Tony Khan came out and said, hey, look, all of our money is generated in television revenue. Everything that we do comes through TV. So what you're going to see us do, yeah, pay-per-views are great and the buys are good. And you know, selling out the stadium is great. But we make all of our money with our partnership with TNT. We make all of our money with television. So we're going to give the fans more pay-per-view quality television on Wednesday nights. So you can tune in and you can expect to see once a month, once every 6 weeks, you can expect to see big time pay-per-view quality matches and shows on AEW Dynamite, which I think is fantastic. And that's what we got on Wednesday. And that's why you got a title change. And now you have a new AEW World Champion in Kenny Omega. I think Kenny Omega was the guy who both of us thought was the guy to take the belt off of Jon Moxley. I don't think either one of us have a problem with him taking the belt off of Jon Moxley. I have a bit of a problem with the timing of it. And this goes back to something we had talked about a little bit earlier in this podcast. Again, I think you have had a really nice build and you have a lot of story to pull from. These two guys have met once before. It was the barbed wire match. It was the broomstick wrapped in barbed wire. You had this match. You had this fight. And it was a really, really good match last year. Then they really haven't interacted with each other at all. This is like the first time in roughly 360 some odd days that they've had any real interaction with each other in the ring. And I think we got a pretty good fight. They have totally clashing styles. I think Don Callis played a fantastic role in all of this. And we're gonna talk about that here in a few moments. But I think this was just a little bit early to pull the belt off of Jon Moxley. I think what you could have done, and I don't like those weird fake finishes. I don't like the weird finishes. But what I think you could have did is you could have took it to that 60-minute draw. You could have had it to where these guys beat the living crap out of each other on the outside of the ring and the referee was forced to count them out. You could have basically done this to where they both ended up pinning each other. You could have took this in a couple different directions to where you basically had a tie. And we could have continued to build this story and make it feel a little bit bigger, make it feel a little bit more rich. So then when Kenny did take the strap off of him, it felt like it was time. This felt like it was a little bit rushed. And I hate rush stories, especially when they look like they're fantastic. Am I completely crazy for this?
No, I think it was the right time because, look, you got to remember, too, that part of the build is I think you're looking at it from the perspective of Omega Moxley. Omega has been a top guy for the entire run of AEW. I mean, but he started off in tag team action, started off doing things that were, less than what he's capable of. So while you may think they could have gotten more out of Moxley and Kenny Omega for the title, I think you're going to get a lot more going forward because Moxley's going to be the guy that's going to be probably the wild hunter that could either get the belt back or could be somebody that could cost Kenny Omega because it's a long-standing feud. Remember that Omega and Moxley started off basically AEW with some violent-ass matches. You remember that? So it's an opportunity for this to carry on. It's the perfect time. I think, actually, in hindsight, when everybody was talking about the fact that there's no chance Omega could be the champion, I think you and I were kind of on the page of like, you know what? Omega's probably the one next in line if it's not going to be Adam Page. So I think it was all around great storytelling. And then, as we lead into the news segment here, the involvement of Don Callis was really, really intriguing in how they handled everything, because not only then do you open yourself up to work with another company, but another company that's on the rise that could really bolster the business. And I think it's just a great way to handle everything. So with AEW, the future's bright and it's all good. I think there's an opportunity for great things to happen. So it's a great opportunity. Things are looking up for AEW. And in regards to pay-per-view quality matches and things like that, what better way to kick off 2021 than knowing, holy crap, AEW is about to light the world on fire and put out some amazing content in the next couple months. So look out. Wednesday's the night. It's got to be this. And we've talked about it. You know it. You got to tune in Wednesdays. Friday and Mondays, you can DVR and get to it at your leisure. But if you miss Wednesday, you're missing out on the prime time in the world of professional wrestling. So, cuz, hit me up with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What caught your attention? What are the big storylines going on in wrestling?
So we've kind of danced all around it with this podcast. And the big thing to come out of Wednesday night at the very, very end of the show, as Kenny Omega and Don Callis, who is the head of TNA's creative team, we're heading to an Escalade to pull out of the lot with the championship belt in their hands. Like I said, we've danced all around it. The big news is AEW and Impact Wrestling now have a working relationship. So if Wednesday nights are the place to be, you need to at least tune in and check out what the hell's going on Tuesday nights with Impact Wrestling. Don Callis, Kenny Omega will be on TNA this week, or actually Impact Wrestling, I should say. I refer to it as TNA. That's how old school I am. On Impact Wrestling this Tuesday. So you're going to want to check that out on Access TV. I think that's the probably the biggest thing to come out of this pay-per-view is that AEW was looking for a partner. They wanted somebody to share talent, and now you have it. And I think it's a fantastic company to do it with. You have a lot of young stars who are up and coming, and I think you can get some really good feuds going cross-promotion between the two. And I think it is fantastic.
Do you think, also, real fast, do you think by chance maybe Impact could become the pseudo NXT for AEW, where, yeah, you have inter-company feuds, but Impact just kind of becomes really the place where superstars that come out, that get over, that get trained, shoot up to AEW?
Yeah, I think so. I think you could totally see that. And I think what'll end up happening is what's going to happen with Impact is they're going to get I don't want to say it's the brush with greatness, but they're going to get the rub from working with Impact and from working with all those big name stars that are on AEW's lineup. So they're going to get the rub from that, and that's going to help bolster their numbers. Like, this is a thing where this is why. Just let's say I'm a small sample size, right? So I used to love TNA. I loved Impact. I've switched my television providers. I use YouTube TV. I don't have access to Access TV. So now I have to figure out a way for Tuesday to be able to watch that program, to be able to see what's going to happen. I've got to be able to figure out a way to take that in. And that is basically ever since Wednesday night, that's where my head's been. How do I find what I want to watch now? And again, that's drawing me to it. Before, it was one of those things I would casually watch it. If I could find a clip or I could check something out online, I would casually watch it. Now I've got to go and I've got to watch this stuff. And I think in return for the AEW brush with like what I'm going to call greatness, what's going to happen is Impact will be able to then use AEW will be able to use Impact as a feeder system to kind of get big name stars or get guys who are on the come up back up to Dynamite and back up to AEW to perform. So I think it's going to be a great relationship where they're just going to exchange talent. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I think what you're going to see is some of that's going to kind of lead into what Tony Khan was talking about on part of his press conference. And Tony Khan is seriously considering more championships for AEW. On his conference call this week, he said it won't be in 2020. It will be, if it happens, it will most likely be in 2021. I've been seriously thinking about it. There's a lot of momentum for it, and we have a lot of great trio teams. I would like to get through 2020 into Beach Break and towards Revolution, but I definitely think it's something on my agenda and something I've been talking about for a long time and thinking about it. So what you see here is you've got AEW, and what you're kind of getting is you've got, this is the fantastic thing about Tony Khan. He's not just staying stagnant. He wants more. And what he's doing, he's taking from different organizations. So you're going to have a 3-man tag team championship similar to what you have in New Japan. You're going to have probably a junior weight championship just like you have in New Japan. You'll probably have something similar like you have in Impact. And Impact has that same belt. It's their X Division championship. You're going to have under titles, which are going to be fantastic and really help fill things out. The problem's becoming you have a very large roster, and they did not let anybody go due to the pandemic. And Tony Khan talked about that on his press conference as well, talking about how he didn't want to let anybody go because of the pandemic, unlike WWE, where they basically put a bunch of people outside and let them freeze. He doesn't want to do that to anybody. But all that being said, they're running out of programming. They're running out of television time. So they do have another show that is coming on TNT at some point. But what you're going to get is he's talking about taking After Dark and turning it into multiple segments on YouTube. So again, you talked about how AEW is doing a really good job of using social media and using their digital content to grab people and reach people. Well, they're going to be doing a little bit more of that with their YouTube channel, and they've got to find a way to utilize all these wrestlers. And I think that's going to be the big problem is how do you get everybody introduced and how does everybody get television time to really get over? And what you're seeing here is you're running into a little bit of a WWE-esque problem where you've got a lot of the same guys on TV every single Wednesday, and you need to figure out another way to get more guys over and get more guys basically showing up on television here. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles that. It was also announced on Wednesday that Hall of Famer and wrestler, longtime WWE employee Pat Patterson died at the age of 79. Patterson is best known for being crowned the first Intercontinental Champion in WWE history in 1979, as well as working backstage with Vince McMahon in WWE. I'm not going to say a whole lot about Pat Patterson. Patterson did some good things. There are some questionable things in Patterson's past with children. If you really want to delve into that, you can go look into that for yourself. I'm not going to glorify this man. And I think what they did on NXT was great for Vince McMahon because they're butt boys. But I don't know. I just kind of fast forwarded through it because I didn't need to see it. So you can go check that out. You can look into it for yourself. And that's it for this week's wrestling news and notes. AEW hit a home run. I don't think we can tell you guys enough how big of a home run AEW hit.
Call it Grand Slam, baby. Grand Salami. That's what they did. And it was a great show all the way around. Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. We look forward to bringing you another fresh edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast next week. Thank you guys for subscribing. Anywhere your favorite podcast is located, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast. When you hit that subscribe button, our daily content finds you. Thank you guys so much. We look forward to talking again next week.